All right,
There
what
was
else?
a lot of community taking care of other kids
Right,
and stuff
right.
too.
Well, they
Because
had to, because at that point
he
they
could
were-
have-
Kind of like
could've-
playing with the neighbors or whatever.
Yeah.
Who knows?
He could have ridden up front with the women, he could have ridden in back with the men, or he could have been somewhere in the middle with all the kids. So,
Now, Mary was very typically like a good mom, thinking that the child is supposed to be holding onto her skirt and just stay with me.
yeah.
I shouldn't have to tell you 20 times the same thing. Just hold my hand,
And
stay right
they
here.
still get lost.
But,
And they
but
still
I must be
get
about
lost.
my father's business.
That's right. Yeah.
I kind of wondered that Jacob's neighbors, when they saw him pulling out, didn't want to join the caravan themselves.
Well, they might have gone to Egypt for food anyway, just not with the family. Because we read somewhere that the whole world went to Egypt for food. I can't remember if it was a previous chapter or one of the chapters we read this week. The whole known world went to Egypt. And history tells us that Egypt had the best granaries in the whole world. And the Bible kind of explains that. Why? Verse 33, Joseph coaches them. Tell them you're shepherds. Then you will be allowed to settle in the region of Goshen, for all shepherds are detestable to the Egyptians.
So they went right to Goshen
Yeah.
first.
They tell them that you tend livestock, they tell them the shepherd. The shepherds were looked down upon for that.
And that was in the.
What was the
that
importance of
Nile.
that?
He said, tell them you're keepers of
He wouldn't have let
livestock."
them in
Right,
if they
right.
weren't
He didn't have to say
shepherds?
shepherds.
Right, you couldn't live
Yeah.
in the
Because
town.
All
he said
shepherds are
shepherds were
detestable.
abhorrent.
to Egyptians.
Terrible.
Yeah.
You know, to Egyptians.
They're detestable.
Yeah. So he said we were
Tenders of
keepers
life-
of livestock. Well, of course, livestock includes a lot more than sheep.
Could be camels.
It could be camels. could be-
Donkeys.
Yeah,
Those are a
donkeys,
big
anything
item.
like that. So they weren't just specifically, he didn't want to say they were
Well,
specifically
you know,
shepherds.
he told him, yeah.
Well,
He said that's what you should tell Pharaoh, but then in chapter 47, it said, Joseph went and told Pharaoh, my father and my brothers with their flocks and herds, where flocks are going to be sheep and goats. Herds will be the cattle. So it kind of was back and
what
forth.
verse are you guys seeing where it says that they were keepers of livestock?
That was in chapter
34.
33 and 34, yeah, 34.
34, you shall say, your servants have been keepers of cattle from your youth even until now.
Okay. So,
So that would they would let him settle, that would keep them,
Let
let them
them
settle
settle.
in the land of Goshen.
Mhm.
Because if he told them that they were shepherds, maybe they
He
wouldn't
wouldn't,
be
and
allowed.
yet in 47, he tells them that
Yeah,
they
but
are.
it's-
Right.
So that doesn't make sense.
let's see 33.
They were already in Goshen at that time, weren't they?
In 33?
No, well, it's
No.
47
No.
and 1.
All right, let's see
47.
here. So what verse again, 33 what?
It's 46.
Chapter 46.
Oh,
yeah.
46, okay.
46, verse
34.
34.
Oh,
Well, it's
okay.
verse 33, 34.
Tended livestock, yeah.
Yeah, and the reason he said it is, and because all shepherds are abhorrent to the Egyptians.
Yeah, it doesn't make
But
sense.
they didn't
Mhm.
answer the Pharaoh that way in 47:4 or 47:3.
Because the whole purpose of Joseph telling them that
Exactly.
is because he wanted them to be in Goshen.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And he wanted them to be separated.
Do you think that maybe since Joseph's been around with the Egyptians, maybe he's just got a different speech pattern?
Could be.
So he's saying sheep keeper of livestock instead of shepherd, where the
Maybe they're
Israelites
not
would have,
entirely
you know, it's
trusting
just
in
a
that.
different speech
Mhm.
pattern.
I
Could
don't
be.
know.
Because it's the same thing, and it
Right,
doesn't look like,
could,
Yeah.
or it could mean the same thing.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And then Pharaoh says, well, if they're so capable, then I'll put them in charge of my livestock.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting that Goshen means drawing near. There's also a place in Palestine between Gaza.
Goshen, Indiana is where a lot of Mennonites live. Lots of Mennonites.
Right here.
I think it's kind of interesting that were there other Ramses besides,
I think it was just like a king's name.
okay,
It's where the
because
Pharaoh's
I know it's the
Ramses.
city of Ramses. It mentions it, and I know in Moses, Ramses is the name of the king at
Yeah.
that time. With Moses, it's Ramses. So,
I think
okay.
maybe it was more than
Eventually
one though.
became
Was there?
storehouse
I think.
area for the granaries after. things moved on.
Just Moses is in my head because we're doing it for Awana. So, I get to finish up tomorrow.
Last day.
Yay!
Last day for the whole
I'm
year.
ready.
I am too.
School's out.
Yay!
Yeah. And then we see that Jacob blesses Pharaoh.
Kind of like Methuselah.
Did he want his blessing? Was that like,
No, Jacob blessed him anyway.
oh,
Yeah.
in mine it says, or greeted.
oh, there's a difference.
What'd she say?
Yeah.
Or greeted.
Or greeted.
Oh.
Yeah, and then when you
That's-
check the Hebrew, it was blessed. So once again, the problem in translation, because some commentaries say, well, why would Pharaoh accept a blessing from a Hebrew? He would have just greeted him. But that's kind of our interpretation of what happened. So when we go back to the Hebrew, it says that Jacob did bless him, and that would kind of fulfill what God told Abraham, that everybody in the world would be blessed through you. So Jacob being Abraham's grandson,
Mhm.
he's blessing other people through him, through Abraham. So that kind of fulfills that promise that God made.
Well, and two, the Pharaoh thought an awful lot of Joseph, so he probably thought, well, his father probably has some of the same values and,
Yeah.
that I do,
I just like the
that
way-
Joseph
Pharaoh
does.
knows that he was blessed
Yeah.
through Joseph.
Yeah,
I like the way Pharaoh says, how old are you? It's like,
he must
man-
look pretty old.
yeah, and he's probably thinking, and you had Joseph? Just-
Yeah.
Well, but he, I don't know, how many wives does Pharaoh have? So,
Probably a ton.
okay, so,
Yeah.
And in the notes, it says, some of Joseph's family will benefit and become high-ranking Egyptian officials.
oh,
Some of
Now-
Joseph's family?
Yeah.
Yeah, because,
Because of what God has called Joseph to do.
Yeah,
But,
and
I
Pharaoh
would think
puts
if
him
the
in charge.
shepherds were, they weren't looked well upon by the Egyptians, but yet it
That's
says
surprising.
high-ranking Egyptian officials, so that,
because when Pharaoh puts them in charge of his livestock, he gives them power too.
So that's a
That's
important
how some of
job.
the brothers
Yeah.
got to be an elevated
he
status
wanted
there.
to know what they were good at. Remember, he asked, let me know who's good at what,
Right,
because he would use them
Right.
in his, because he figures, well, Joseph did a great job, maybe one of them is,
yeah.
They probably
Talented.
did a good job too.
So,
So it's interesting, an open line from Pharaoh with Jacob. How old are you?
Yeah, it's like, what was the purpose?
What does sojourning mean?
Travel.
Not a
long
term.
sojourn,
Vacation.
long trip.
Okay, because
Thinking about shepherds,
the
so
days, or the days of the
the
years
difference
of my
between
sojourning
Sojourn.
are
the
130.
shepherd and the
Wow.
My life.
keeper of livestock.
yeah.
So maybe saying that the days of his traveling through the world are
The
130.
shepherds what to do.
Of course, and then he says, few and hard have been the years of my life.
Yes.
That's how Jacob
Were they
got all
still
those
living that
things from Laban.
lengthy time?
Remember?
Well, he was comparing it to his
All the
father
sheep.
immediately in the
Yeah.
next line when he says,
Yeah.
With the-
I've lived 130 years, but not as long as my
So they came
father.
up with stripes and
Abraham was allowed.
he knew what he was
Kind of the
doing, so.
implication for Romans that we are pilgrims
My
on earth,
ancestors.
this is our home.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, this says fathers here.
Jacob blessed the Pharaoh twice.
Yeah.
Of my fathers in the days of their sojourning.
The fathers and the ancestors.
Yeah.
What else do we see here?
Well, he wants to put him to work right away with the Egyptian livestock.
Yeah, and he also says that the land they gave him is the best part of the land.
Right.
But I guess they want good land for their cattle and
Yeah, for all
everything.
the livestock.
I was wondering,
I
how
wondered.
many people he had to chase off of it to give it to him.
I wondered what the Egyptian livestock people thought.
Yeah.
Well, they probably worked for him, but they were the bosses. Maybe.
You think there were enough livestock to go around for,
I don't know.
I don't know.
It
Of course, they brought their own.
it seems
too.
to me that maybe their livestock weren't doing as good.
The Egyptians?
Yeah, and then they sold their livestock for food to
To
Egypt,
Egypt, and then to the.
and he gave them to the Jacob's family to take care of because they were really good at it. I don't know. It just seems kind of
Doesn't make sense.
no.
Well, they needed food, so,
yeah, but it has to be a big thing or it wouldn't be in the Bible.
Does it have to do with those cows eating up the other cows?
Oh, that dream?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
well, that was
he
really
saw-
into the famine, but
7 years and good years and 7 bad years.
Seven healthy cows eating grass and 7 drying ones came out and ate the 7
Well, it just
healthy
well,
ones.
what confuses you about, because you're talking about verses 16 and 17, right?
Look back up.
no
See, that
further
really
down
doesn't
yet.
make
Back
sense.
in about 42.
Yeah, I'm down all the way to 22. Joseph reduced the people to servitude.
Okay, but first, they ran out of money,
Right.
so then they had to sell their cattle, all their livestock, otherwise they're gonna die.
Well, the Egyptians came to Joseph and
Right.
said, "Give us food, or we will die before your eyes." They say that twice.
I'm surprised if it's a famine, that means it's a drought, like, if there's no
Yeah.
grass, so how are the animals even
Since
living?
the money was all gone.
I don't know.
That's in 16. So they brought their livestock to Joseph, and he gave them food in exchange for their horses and their sheep and their goats and their cattle and donkeys. And he brought them through that, brought them through that year with food in exchange for the livestock. And the next year, they sold their land.
And then themselves,
Right.
And then themselves, yes.
4-stage process.
Well, if you're starving to death, you can do anything for food.
Right, yeah.
Joseph's family brought their livestock and everything, why doesn't he just keep the livestock and everything?
I don't know.
Good question.
Good question.
Well, according to the musical, all the livestock was dead. But
Well, that's during Moses.
Joseph and his children.
Oh, that musical.
that musical.
What musical? I don't know.
Well, there you have it.
Joseph and his amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat.
The Bible's wrong and the musical is correct.
Well,
isn't it?
yeah, he knew what he was writing. No, Andrew Lloyd Webber, I
Right.
think, yeah.
Yeah, right.
Did the Israelites have to buy then from Joseph? Like the Egyptians did, or they were? they
It
just
doesn't
got-
say
I
that.
don't think so.
It said Joseph provided his father, his brothers, and all of his father's household with food according to the number of their dependents. That was in 47:12.
Yeah, I don't think they ever had to trade their stuff in, because Joseph did.
Sounds like generosity completely
The
from the
Pharaoh-
Egyptians. How much could they have had at that point to trade?
Yeah.
I don't know.
The Pharaoh provided the food for Jacob's family.
Yeah, I don't think the Hebrews had to pay for anything.
No.
So
Because
the
they got all
Egyptians
the
had
goats.
Because the Pharaoh,
slavery,
before they brought them there, told
Yeah.
he would see that they were kept.
And they weren't forced to be slaves, they were more like sharecroppers. They farmed the land for the Egyptians, and they had to pay a tax of the 1/5. So that's the first thing I thought was, did they make slaves of the Egyptians before they made slaves of the Hebrews? But the commentaries say no, they were just forced into, what was the term?
Servitude.
Yeah,
He said
servitude, but-
they made
Kinda like
servants
sharecropper.
of them,
Yeah.
from one end of Egypt to the other.
Wait, servants of the Egyptians?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Only the land of priests he did not buy.
Revised Standard says slaves.
Yeah.
What?
Oh, really?
Yeah, made slaves of them.
Was that Pharaoh's
His
idea to
revised
do that,
standard.
or
By
It was
law.
Joseph's idea.
Joseph's idea?
So he made Pharaoh in Egypt pretty rich.
Yeah, mine says he made slaves of them.
By taking
And
the
so in
livestock
21, in
and
21,
the
so
slaves,
Joseph reduced the
the
people to
Egyptians as slaves, so
servitude.
he
From
made
one end of Egypt
Pharaoh's
to the other.
people slaves in order to make Pharaoh richer.
Right, because he's got all the land of Egypt now, he's got all the money of Egypt, he's got all the livestock of Egypt, he's got everything.
He's just growing bigger now.
Right, the people have nothing.
Right.
But in 22, the priest didn't have to fork over.
Right.
No.
Right. The priests were always set aside.
But in 21, says Joseph reduced the people to servitude from one end of Egypt to the other.
Yeah, and in other versions of the Bible it says slaves.
Servitude, so they
Yeah.
can say things.
Now, servitude would be a little bit better because you're a servant, whereas slave, you're under complete
You're
control.
owned.
Yeah, you're owned.
Well, they do say that you have saved our lives, and may we find favor in the eyes of our Lord, lowercase l, and we will be in bondage to Pharaoh. So they knew.
Well, they said that they were selling themselves to the Pharaoh, so they
Right.
already knew that they were gonna
Yep.
be.
Yeah.
But yet, they gave them the seed to grow the harvest. Here's the seed is for you, sow the land, and at the harvest you shall give 1/5 to Pharaoh. So it wasn't all coming back to Pharaoh, so they weren't totally slaves, they still had 4/5 of the crop.
Yeah.
See, and the way I
Supposedly.
took that, the way I interpreted that was it Jacob or Joseph? I get the two confused, but Joseph being the sounding board of the Pharaoh, spun it in the people's favor. So yes, we own all the land, we own you, we own all the food. We have to do something with you now that we own you. So go out and farm,
In 20,
farm for us.
in 23.
This is our seed, our crops, our field, our everything. You just work it. And then, like I said, he spun it to where it was still beneficial for them, that 4/5 was for themselves,
80%.
but that it's enough to still grow and multiply and feed their families and
Give him some
keep going back and
sense of
making
worth a little bit, maybe.
Exactly. Making
Psychology.
the nation still bigger yet and still stronger, and that's how I.
Well, because, in 27, they were fruitful and increased greatly in numbers once they were settled. So,
The Israelites
But that's
did.
They
the
acquired
Yeah.
property.
The crops or the people?
the
The
people.
Israelites.
The Israelites.
The Israelites.
The people.
Yeah.
Not the Egyptians.
Yep. And that's gonna work against them in Exodus.
But God said, go forth and multiply.
That's right, they're just doing what God says.
Exactly.
The commentary says the growth rate was about 5% annually. So 600,000 men were counted when they left. Maybe it was a million.
When they left Egypt, with Exodus? Wow.
So there was more like 1 million people.
Not quite like Illinois where it's decreasing.
Right.
And this started from the 70?
Wow. So God's plan worked.
Yep.
They
God's promise
increased
worked.
greatly.
That was in 17
Kept his
years,
promise.
too.
Mm-hmm.
That was pretty.
Yeah, because he was only there
17 years.
And then Jacob makes Joseph promise by putting his hand under his thigh,
Oh, that one
We saw that
again.
before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Testify.
testify, you know how that works.
Yeah, mhm.
And then, this is where Jacob says, "Don't leave me in Egypt. Bury me where my fathers are buried." And that's it. That's chapter 47.
Crazy family.
I think it's kind of funny though that Jacob, or Israel made him swear to it. Because he said, "I will do as you've said." And he says, "I'm not taking that for a word. Swear to me. There's going to be none of this monkeying around again."
Because I know you're one of my sons.
Yeah, yeah. I taught you well.
Right.
That thigh thing.
Yeah.
Is that Ishmael?
No, it was Abraham. Abraham made the thigh, was the first thigh.
Is that when we saw it?
Yeah.
I can't remember.
I can't remember either.
Who's the number one thigh guy?
One thigh guy?
So next week, no class because we're moving our son up